We had some technical difficulties here. You can't see my head. I'm just a body there. So thank you everybody for joining us. We had to kind of rig a system up and we're on now. Pat, are you recording yet?
I paused it. It's now on YouTube and I will pause it.
Thank you. And Natalie, I'm gonna rely on you to be
YouTube and I will pause it.
Okay, there we go. Natalie, I'm gonna rely on you probably for the public comment session, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome, thank you. And we might have to speak up a little louder, for the computer. I don't know how well they're hearing us. Okay. Well, that was an exciting start to the day so far. So thank you guys for all being patient. We're here in Great Falls. I have no idea how many members of the public are on, if any, but we have some task force members joining us. Mitch and Mandy cannot make it today. And I think if there's any votes, Mandy gave Rich her property.
Yep.
Let's see. We're just gonna go over the agenda to start. And I think Christie's on and Courtney's on. I think that's the only two we were waiting for. So we have an exciting day for you guys, not just this meeting, but obviously going out and doing some shooting for those that can go. Nephi was just here and talking about it, so that's great. We have some people that are going to be joining us from I think it's McHugh. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it. Meadows. Anybody pronounce that? But they're from a construction company that built the South Dakota facility. So they'll be on at 9, joining us at 9 for 30 minutes. So wherever we are when they join us, we're gonna have to just go ahead and stop and they're joining us from South Dakota and their Montana office will be on, and just want to be able to answer any questions that you guys have. Then we're gonna go over the PR subcommittee update, see if there's what's going on there and see what's been done to get the word out. Sam has the shooting facility survey update, and I'll have the individual survey update. I sent that out to you guys yesterday, I believe. There's some interesting things that we've been seeing in that, and I'm pretty excited about it. And then we'll have the public feedback session and just talk about some next steps for the June meeting. And if we want the June meeting, because it's only a couple weeks away, and we'll put out to you guys then if we think we need one in June, or if you think we should be just digesting that data. That's it for the agenda, and then I'll turn it over to the representative for approval of the notes for the night.
Do we need to take? Well, you guys have already got that. You know who's here.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you once again for coming to Great Falls. And then I'm really looking forward to this afternoon as well. And so thankful for Nephi and all that he's providing and the opportunity that we have this afternoon to go shoot some of those long distance guns. It'll be a lot of fun. So I'm just going to go ahead and would anybody like to make a motion to accept our minutes from last meeting? Done.
So moved.
And seconded. Our guys are sitting with arms reached. It's been moved and seconded. Any objection? All right, it's been moved, seconded, and we have accepted our minutes from last meeting.
I feel a little naked without being on my computer here. Sorry.
I did want to mention Sheriff Slaughter may be stopping by.
Okay, good.
And And if he does, I would love to give him just a few minutes today
Sure.
too, to talk about a training facility that he has a vision for. Because we're talking about possibly, what it could look like if we were to have a combination of a training / range facility. So if he does, then I'm texting him, we'll see if he does. But
Okay. I hadn't heard back from him. I sent him all the information today. I just wanted to give the opportunity of any, to all the task force members for any opportunity for report outs. If you guys have gone to any facilities, if you talked to any members of the public, if there's anything that you want to share, I figured that this would be a good opportunity and we could just go around the room or.
I am going to be going to Rapid City and I've got a phone call in there June 19th or 20th, or it could be an and type of thing. I don't know what they've got going on. If somebody wants to join me, let me know.
I'm driving or flying.
I'm driving. Yeah, it could be. I mean, that's like Friday and Saturday.
Quickly,
It's also the Quigley. Where's the Quigley?
foresight.
So that might be a good thing for me to do, a stop by, because I'll be going that direction. From Billings, it's a 5-hour drive. And I actually,
2 hours to.
Yeah.
You can stop by
I can stop by and see you.
and there you go.
Well, I'd have to do that on my way back, but that would be a great idea to do that as well. So maybe I'll do that. But that's kind of the plan. It's a 5-hour drive. I actually grew up in Black Hills, South Dakota, so it's always wonderful for me to go back home to Custer. I won't be in Custer, I'll be in Rapid, but to go back to South Dakota. But I will be there if anybody wants to join, or if you are headed to Forsyth as well, just let me know. And then I have got a few phone calls out to legislators from Wyoming. Haven't heard back from them. They did tell me that they had meetings this week. And I was out of service for a long time last time driving up here, which is wonderful, but at the same time, it puts me out of service. So that's kind of what I've got going on right now.
Anybody else?
Well, I was talking about this, but it was before we were online. So for anybody online, I took the flyers around. I had really great success at pawn shops. They were very interested and willing to post them many places. I did not have as much luck at like chain gun stores, simply because they were concerned about yeah, and some of them didn't have like a public bulletin board or anyway. And the only other thing, not that we'll ever do this again, but I had several of them say our flyer isn't an FWP flyer, so they weren't allowed to post it. I'm like, well, scan the QR code and you'll see it's FWP. And they're like, no, if it's branded FWP, we hang things. And if it's not branded, then
Who is that?
At North 40.
Oh, see, we intentionally did not brand that FWP because it's your survey.
Right.
Yeah, so.
I just thought that was interesting.
And our ComEd staff had the same question, shouldn't we brand this FWP? And I said, no, because it's not.
But he did say he'd hang it in the break room.
Oh, that's
He's like, I can put them in the break room. They got lots of employees.
Approved by FWP.
I know. But yeah, that was a concern. We wanted to make sure that it didn't look like we were, putting a finger on anything. And
Yeah, I think they're great.
she did a great job on the flyer. And we do have them hanging up in all of our regional offices here. I noticed one out here too.
It's a great idea, the pawn shops, though. I
So,
did not even think of the pawn shops.
so I did attend our Deep Creek. I got to make sure I get this said. I did attend the Deep Creek spring meeting. There were probably about 25 folks there. I brought them up to date as to what we're doing with this prior to the publication survey. Answered questions as best I possibly could. And a lot of interest and frankly concern, but I'll deal with that later. And then I met with, leadership of the Deer Creek shooting range, folks, and, we had, nice conversation. So, and I encouraged everybody to get their surveys done and to spread the word among their membership. And I plan on attending the Deep Creek meeting. I think it's next week. And then I'm going to take a run up the bidder at Whitaker and see, get in touch with those folks and see, get the word passed up there. So, and of course, in a kind of a related thing, been working with the North Valley shooting range folks. I don't know if you heard, they saw a significant increase in their lease. And so I had a letter sent to DNRC, and we kind of, I think, got things moving to maybe help those folks deal with their funding or their cost on that facility.
Can
And
you tell me
appreciate everybody's work.
why there was an increase? Was it just,
Well, you know, under the Constitution, you know, on the trust lands, we have to get the full
Highest and best.
value of our lands.
Market value.
And so, you know, that facility sits on DNRC trust land. And so, you know, there was a lot of concern there. So talking to Sam, I mean, I think we're looking at other options to help reduce the cost. And, they signed the lease, from what I understand, correct, Sam?
They're in a lease currently, yes.
But, okay, anyway, so, we're trying to work that out, so, or the DNRC is, and I think you guys are working with them also.
Yeah,
Right now.
for what it's worth, I'm sure, Senator, we're being asked to pay more. FWP as an agency for DNRC property that we lease from them for fishing access sites or other sites that we manage on trust land. So it's a large arc of the agency looking harder at fulfilling their trust and fiduciary responsibility for the school trust. And that's, you know, the pressure's not just focused necessarily on lessees who may have a shooting range. They're probably looking at the commercial lessees and the commercial properties they have, and they're looking to us for property we lease from them for fishing access sites.
I think this is going to have to be a topic for the next session. We're going to have to do some addressing on the issue.
it's just a round robin with tax dollars and
Pardon?
it's a round robin with tax dollars. And then when you get to zero, that's because you've lost all your leases.
Well, and Madam Chair, if you think about it from, as Jeff pointed out too, understanding state lands too, you've got the commercial and you've got the grazing. I think there's some opportunity as we look at areas where there might be some potential state lands that do really fit for a shooting range, but if we look at it kind of outside the box and saying, like we're doing with FASs, where you look at, say, a shooting range that may only take up 30 acres of someone's, say, grazing lease that has 640 to 1,000 acres of DNRC, and maybe thinking about how those can be pooled together where the grazing will be part of something as opposed to the, you know, the shooting. And so again, as the fiduciary responsibility of the state is for schools and our education, it's maybe looking at how those can be pulled together or whatever, because I don't think that the state or if we have some sites where there could be a shooting range, that the club doesn't need to have 640 acres of a lease to make it all work. I mean, they need a certain aspect. So there might be some ways to kind of work through that.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Is two questions. Is Deep Creek on DNRC land?
It's on FWP land.
Oh,
Deep Creek is on FWP. Oh,
no, that's
it is.
FW.
Deer Creek is private.
Okay. Well, the Whitefish Rifle and Pistol Club and the North Valley Club are on DNRC lands, and their lease went up 300%.
Yeah, so that's what precipitated all this discussion.
Right, and they have a lot of infrastructure that they're hesitant to invest in infrastructure if their lease is going to be, honorable. Pretty can't, it's, well, and I have yet to figure out, are there lease payments annually, or are they all in one lump sum for 10 years?
I can't answer that question.
Ours are typically annual on the annual leases we have, but honestly, DNRC is trying to get us out of leases and wanting us to actual purchase permanent perpetual easements, make the long buy so that they don't do it. But ours are typically annual.
And I don't, if you're a great, I would assume that they follow like where they're annual. Like you pay your annual stake raising leases and
Well, a club of some 400 people, with an annual fee of more than $7,000 is pretty steep.
Yeah.
Pretty steep.
Well, I'm really glad we're discussing this issue though, and that it kind of came at the right time for us to take a look at this. Like
Yeah.
you said, as we go forward, it seems to fit really well with looking at the state of our ranges across the state. So I'm thankful that kind of serendipitous.
I don't know, it's probably not appropriate for us to step out of our place here.
Well, I think that they fit together
Well,
because it's us taking a look
just-
at our ranges.
Just want to make sure that Jeff gives us good, legal.
No, I think conversation about rising prices for range facilities on trust land is a piece of the whole global landscape. You guys are certainly appropriate for you to look at and mull. And in most of those cases, I'm guessing most of the lessees in those instances are nonprofits, to your point, that aren't flush with money and don't have a lot of margin for carrying those increased lease payments on the trust land located facility.
And it may not be something that we as a body look at, but it is definitely something though that we can be very aware of as an organization, but then those of us who are headed back next session can take a look at it further.
Well, would it be appropriate to include in our, report? I can't remember, we report out to the governor and the legislature and just have that be one of the topics of the report is that.
I believe so. I mean, I think that I would, would there be any objection if we add that kind of to our scope? Because it does seem to be a huge overbearing, onerous was the great word that you have, part of what's happening to our ranges right now.
If it fits within the legislation, I think it's.
Certainly for making that, that recognizing that, and that there are presumably, different cost structures for. I don't know, for example, what Prickley Pear pays for their special use permit. I mean, you've got nonprofits running ranges on Forest Service, probably running on BLM. We're talking about nonprofits running on state trust land. We have nonprofits with arrangements with us that are running on FWP property. So the whole subject of the viability of nonprofit operated ranges on public land is certainly a dead center and, for conversation.
Sam, do we have a list of those ranges that this would impact in the state? Do we have it separated by that?
We haven't gone through and identified every single different property owner and where those ranges fall. We have a decent idea on our map, but we haven't gone through all of them.
So we don't know which ones would be private, which ones would be on either FD.
We have a really good idea. We need to verify that information.
Is that, I mean, that just might be because of the luck of the draw. Where a lot of communities started contacting us, as the commission keeps going. Or we contact them, either way. Is that a possibility that we at least get an estimate of which ones they are?
Yeah, give us a little time. We can put
Okay.
together a table of that.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're creating more work, but that may end up being a really important.
So are we interested in private landowners and then specifically like BLM, Forest Service, FWP, separating those out?
Well, I don't know if we need to separate BLM for service because that's not really what we're. I mean, that for this issue itself, we're talking about,
State.
yes, state owned, yeah. And the lease is going up, so that would be just state owned at this time.
I think would be helpful for us to have that information so we can, in our discussion and our outcomes.
Because it seems like it's going to be a big discussion and we need to have as much information as we can have as well. And then maybe we do set up a meeting with the commission, with DNRC, or, I mean, the governor's office may be part of that. Well, they will. They don't have to originate in the house. So. Thank you, Senator.
Can I press pause on this now and we could go to Megan? If you want to introduce yourself and others that you brought with you, and we'll have a good discussion here.
Yeah, thank you. And are you Deb?
Yes.
Okay, good. Hi, Deb. Good to meet you. And good morning, task force members and senators, representatives. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you today. I've brought two of my colleagues. Well, backing up, I am with McGough Construction in Helena, and as well as Devin Hill. He is our project executive in our Helena office. And then Ron Steffen is our GM of the Sioux Falls location for McGough, who has had quite a role in the South Dakota Shooting Sports Complex facility, of which you heard from Mr. Kanta at your last meeting. And so I reached out to Deb and said, you know, we're the contractor that built that complex, and if there's anything we can do to answer questions around the construction process, how that process went from, you know, just a perspective of where it's been for our Rapid City office, and because we also have a Rapid City location. I just wanted to be able to offer some, you know, discussion around how that project was handled, and let you all have a chance to ask our team some questions. So Ron is really the right person to have here with you all today, because he oversaw quite a bit of that project. And so I'll let Ron introduce himself, and he can take it from there. How's that?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. Well, good morning, everyone. As Megan mentioned, I lead our South Dakota operations, our offices in both Sioux Falls, Eastern South Dakota, and then Rapid City, Western South Dakota. And we recently wrapped up the South Dakota Shooting Sports Complex in October of last year. So you did have a chance to speak with John Kanta, Game Fish and Parks. John's a great guy and has a ton of knowledge and operations experience. So happy to be here today. I candidly have been corralled into my bedroom because we have a graduation today at home and I'm not allowed to use the rest of the house. So I'm sure you can relate. So I apologize for that, but I'm all ears today. So anything that I can help add insight to in terms of the project that you're looking at or steps towards that time frames, I'm happy to answer any questions. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to you guys. Do you have any questions or?
My first question is, how do you spell the name of your firm?
McGough. It's MCGOUGH. So
Thank you very much.
yeah, you bet. It's kind of like cough, but Goff, right? McGough. So
Perfect. I appreciate it. Well,
no,
and
you know what? We get that question. I think that's like the top 5 question we get is how do you say that and how do you spell it?
yes, I bet it is. So Deb asked me if we wanted to include y'all today, and because my teammates ask the best questions. And I thought, well, if I could, I don't know if you're familiar with what we're kind of doing research with PR funds and the way that y'all have done it, the way Wyoming is doing it, Colorado, different facilities across the nation. But we realized we had this opportunity and it would be foolish for us not to take the opportunity to take a look at it. Whether it's regional, whether it's a big facility somewhere in the state, we're not sure yet. But I do know, and I know that John mentioned it a couple times, and I can't remember. What was the from groundbreaking until finish? What was that time period that it took y'all?
Well, it was delayed a little bit at the beginning with some civil work that was out of our scope. So it was about 16 months, but realistically, you could probably, depending on the size and the complexity of the structures, finish it in 12 minus.
Question, you mentioned, civil work, the civil work including, getting the adjacent landowners, to sign on to this complex?
We did not have that portion of the project in our project in north of Rapid City there. That land was all wholly owned by one person and donated to the state. So we didn't have to, we had no part in that, I guess.
Okay.
Ron, this is Seth. Could you give us just a kind of an overview of, or a timeline for kind of your involvement for when you were brought in, planning stages up through initial work, finalized plan, kind of taking out, like you mentioned, there were some delays, but just an idea of timeline for if you wanted to do a facility of some size, kind of break it out by, berm work, dirt work, site grading, site selection. If you could kind of give us an overview of scope, I guess, with rough times for it, that would probably be helpful.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. So I'll answer that in two parts. So first of all, Game Fish and Parks is partly managed in coordination with the Office of the State Engineer in South Dakota. So the OSE acts as somewhat of an owner's rep for the state or state agencies. So we worked in hand with OSE and Game Fish and Parks on this particular facility. This one was actually hard bid. So we bid the project. So we came in after design, bid the project, and then executed the work. However, the design team in ISG and others had been onboarded about 7 months prior. So the land acquisition took place, and then Game Fish and Parks and Office of the State Engineer then went out and hired a design team, which encompassed not only an architectural firm, but depending on the size and geography of your project, having a landscape architect and a very solid civil engineer is paramount to the success of the project, because about three quarters of your cost is going to be civil work, right? Depending on the extent of your structures, where in South Dakota, we had one main house, if you will, we called it, but the rest of the structures were, shelter type structures, right? Or skeet houses, things of that nature. The bulk of the work and the bulk of the cost is really in that civil design and the civil work. So to answer your question specifically, in the second part is that programming time frame from the time you're actually able to onboard, raise funds, secure land, and then onboard your architect to get to a point where you're able to begin construction. If you choose to go design bid build, but you could also go design build or CMAR, right? So onboard your construction partner early to work in collaboration with your design team. It usually takes, 8 to 10 months, honestly, depending on how fast your organization is able to answer questions, get a consensus from the public, whatever you need to do there to get your programming right. Really, they're the ones that are going to help bring things together, right? You talk about your expectations, and then they kind of bring it to life in terms of a design. So, tip to tail on a project of this size, you're probably looking, a conservative effort would probably be 2 years from where you're at now to done. I hope I answered your question. I kind of took a long path to get there, but
No, that's all helpful. Just trying to understand the process that you guys used and then get an idea of the time breakouts for different components is helpful.
Mhm.
And I'll ask, actually, Ron, I'll ask you a question. Do you think that timeline could have been shortened if it had been a design build versus hard bid or design bid build? Do you think that would have shortened the time?
I do think so. And I'm not saying that selfishly, but anytime that we can get aligned with an owner or ownership group, we really, you know, you're professionals at what you're doing, right? And that's where your time is spent. Well, ours is spent with design teams and in construction. So when we have the ability to push our designers and our design team, it speeds that process up. Otherwise, they tend to take a little bit more time. And so there's a little bit of a lever there to pull in terms of if you're wanting to work on, if speed is a factor to get your project completed, that's usually a good route, or the construction manager at risk route is a good route too, because you're able to procure long lead items, work on multiple, you know, guarantee or GMPs, so you could put out your dirt work package early while you're finishing design. So you're working and finishing design at the same time, which overall shortens the duration of your design and execution phases.
How much was your part of, how much did y'all get paid for that? How much was it?
What did we do on the project?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was
You said
designed.
3/4 was gonna be for the civil work. So I'm just trying to think about where the total cost is.
Yeah, so total cost for the owner, what they chose to do on this particular project is they had about half of the civil package bid out early, and so they carried and managed that, and then we finished the civil package and then the rest of the infrastructure. So all of the electrical to site, sewer, water, and then all of the structures, concrete, paving, concrete, everything else. So we had about half of the civil package and then the remainder of the project.
'Cause I know where you guys are in South Dakota, and I know that the adjoining landowners were not thrilled. You didn't have to deal with that. But how much of the infrastructure did you have to bring out? I mean, for electric, or was that all available?
Electric, we brought in about 3/4 of a mile. There's a main on the gravel road nearby. We were able to pull off of that. And then for water, we put in 2 wells.
Okay. You guys have any other questions? Melissa, do you have any questions?
Were you guys doing all of your septic and everything on site, or was that part of an annex? Did you do ponds, or was it drawn to, I mean, I guess all your well set up, septic set up, was that all on site controlled, or did you link in and hook up with anything?
It's all on-site controlled. It's standalone. So John probably talked to you, but if you haven't, you could look at Google Earth or whatnot, but the range is about 3 miles straight north of Rapid City, really in the middle of rolling prairie.
Yeah, we noticed that you didn't have to move many trees.
Yeah. Yeah. The only trees that got moved were the ones that we moved in to the site.
Yeah, I actually grew up in that area and spent many summers in that area, so I'm very familiar. It's a lovely, lovely area. There's no trees.
Yeah. The Black Hills are beautiful. Well, you're familiar with natural beauty where you're at there, but you get a pretty good mix between the Badlands that looks like you're somewhere on on the moon, and then you're in the Black Hills, which is very wooded, and then you've got that rolling prairie just to the north and as far as you can see east. So nice little mix there.
All right, do we have any other questions did you have any questions, Wallace? Do you have any questions? No.
I think that
The only question I haven't had was a design build, if that would be cheaper and faster than, two separate contracts. No, but I think pretty much answered the question.
Yeah, and I mean, we're still at the very beginning of where we're at. And what's wonderful is we now have some connection with somebody who's been there and has done that before, and we really appreciate that. Plus you're in Helena as well, which is great.
Yeah, well, I'm always available and happy to jump on a call and help me and the Montana team and Devin, and always available. So, and I know John Canta from Game Fish and Parks very well, and he is too, and he's a great resource because he can speak to operations and operating costs, things of that nature, how to right size your project. Really talk about some of the important programming questions that you'll need to probably draw some conclusions on, right? To understand if you get to that point, what exactly it is that you are going to want to do, right? And then that process, but anything we can help provide.
And we do have another question. Go ahead.
So, how many change orders did you encounter during the construction? They can get pretty expensive. So I was just wondering if you would envision the design build process of reducing the amount of change orders.
Question.
Yeah, great question. So this was hard bid, as I mentioned earlier, and so we did not have any change orders that were not scope driven. So anything that I think we had less than 12 change orders on the whole project, and they were all scope additions that we priced up for the owners, on the owner's request. Typically in a design build scenario, whether it's design build or construction manager at risk, there's a little bit of nuance there, but we would enter into at the design drawing stage, which is just before construction documents, usually into a guaranteed maximum price at that point in time. So the owner has the ability to say, this is the most it's going to cost. I know it's not going to cost more than that. And if it does, it's at the risk of our construction manager. So you have price or cost certainty at that point, and then no surprises. And then anything that may come up that is, let's call it an error or omission or something of that nature, that would be the responsibility of the construction manager, then comes out of our construction contingency or fee at that point in time. So we're at risk.
Right. I just texted Representative Sprunger and told her if she had any questions, don't hesitate to ask, but I think she would have asked them if she had them already. Good to see you, Courtney, although I can't see you. Anything else at this point? Well, I just thank you guys so much for being willing to have these conversations with us, and as we're starting to venture into taking a look at what possibilities there are out there. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Thank you
yeah.
for your time.
Yeah, thank you again for the opportunity.
Good luck with graduation today.
Yeah, thanks. It's going to be a good day. We're going to have a lot of fun. So
Yeah. Well, and
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to conclude by saying thank you again for giving us an opportunity just to introduce ourselves to you all and the team, and to be able to explain how to pronounce McGough. And now you know. So when you're looking for some additional, if you have additional questions and throughout this procedure, and if we can answer anything on that construction end, yeah, we're available and ready to go. So thank you again.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Bye, everyone.
All right.
Have a nice weekend.
Thanks, you guys. Bye.
Well, thank you so much, Deb, for bringing that resource in. as we go forward.
And I wasn't even close in how to pronounce that name, so I.
That's my own law firm. I could have told you.
The goth.
It wasn't McGough, but it was Goff.
There you go.
So let's go back to where we were. We were left off on DNRC leases and, Sam and FWP, getting tasked with, identifying landowners and, lease types. Anything else with that before we go on to any other report outs?
I think that may be, and you guys can let me know if I'm going in the right direction here, but that may be a direction that we go with one of our meetings, if we've got enough information to even have that. It could be exploratory or probably more exploratory than anything else, or directional if we needed it to be. I think, what do you look like you have a thought, Louis? Do you have a thought, or are you just?
Well, if you don't mind, I have a thought, just as I think about what we're assigned to do here, I mean, I think that's something that's gonna have to come up in the process, but as we really kind of nail down on complex, what sites we have, I mean, we still kind of find where we even have sites that might be even next to state land and could have an opportunity. I think it'll all come out, because that's part of our job, right, is to find out locations where these could be, and that'll all kind of come into play as we look through that. So, because I mean, the DNRC stuff is kind of set. There might be some legislative things that have to happen as we go through it, but that could be kind of getting into the weeds a little. Our job is to find where we need shooting sites, where they can go, and what the public has been outcrying to fix, I guess. So just my thought.
Another question that I have, in fact, I just wrote it down, is where, if we would need to have a meeting also with the governor's office, because unless we know what the governor's thinking, where he's willing to go with this, or do you think that would be important, or do you think you know that?
I think I have a pretty good sense that I normally wouldn't say I'm speaking for the governor.
Right.
But I do, just like what we're working with FWP on these fishing access sites, he's big on this stuff. Like I think what he would like to hear is not so much, are we going the right, it's like, let's have something to come back and say, hey, we found 8 sites, or 1 site where we want a complex and there's 15 sites that need this work to be done, so we can really get our people out there. That's what he would want to hear, and I think that's what we're tasked with doing. So
Right.
I don't think, I mean, I'm sitting here as a representative of him anyway, so we know there's positive movement that way. I think it's let's get something to share with him and then go from there.
Right, and he's great at working that way. I just want to make sure that as we go forward, we're not coming up with these plans and he's like, oh, that's not my vision at all, because working with the governor's office is going to be very important on this. And I do know that he's a fan of us going forward in this direction. I'm South Dakota had a very rare opportunity with Governor Noem saying, we are going to do this. I'm putting my stamp on it. I'm finding the money. I don't think we have that direction to go, but we do have the opportunity because Governor Gianforte is very positive in this. I just want to make sure we're not going off track so that it becomes a no.
Yeah, Representative, I'd be happy to kind of continue to pass it along, but I feel like we're moving in the right direction. We just need to get a little bit more. That's why all this stuff is so exciting to kind of get something to go, and I keep him updated on things.
Perfect.
So I think if something were to come up that would to change, or there were to be something, I would certainly share that. But I think we're well on task, and it's just, like I said, finding these locations that we need to help people, get out and find the places. And
Yeah, I know he loves people coming into his office and showing off his trophies, which is a lot of fun. Taking pictures. Or showing, pictures of Susan getting her deer or antelope every year.
hopefully we'll get about.
Oh, no, That's Cindy Danes who gets the antelope, isn't it? And Susan gets the deer. Am I getting this right?
I think it depends.
It depends on the year. So I get confused amongst our first ladies, doing things. All right, okay.
Any other report outs in the room, and then I'll go to Christine Ford.
You're going to be at Quigley, right?
Yes,
And you're shooting and you're gonna win again?
yes, that's my plan.
Okay. I will stop by and we'll do a selfie when you get your trophy. How about that?
Yeah.
Well, that's Sunday afternoon. Well, I'll just bring my own trophy for you. How about that?
Okay,
Representative Sprunger, do you have anything you'd like to report out on visits or talking with anybody in the public or shooters or?
So actually, would it be appropriate, Deb, for me to give a report out actually on the press work that we did?
Yep, that's coming up.
Okay.
The agenda.
Yeah, outside of that, to be candid, I've had to travel for work a lot the last 3 weeks. I have talked with the North Valley folks that Senator Curdy also spoke with, and obviously he's made some really good strides for them. They had some pretty significant concerns about their fees, and it sounds like we're addressing that. So thank you, Senator Curdy, for jumping on it. I had run into those gentlemen at a couple different events, and that was a high concern, and obviously pretty relevant up here in this area, but I still have some outreach to do. I'm hoping to get candidly through the next couple weeks of the campaign, and then my space opens up a little bit more.
And we'll come right back to you after I check in with Christy for the PR.
Okay.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Morning, Christy. We could hear you.
Perfect. I haven't been to any places, but I'm going the second week of June to the Whittington Center in New Mexico.
Great.
Well, Christy, tell me how it went. You guys were down there with Andy. Where
We
was
go-
it? Carla?
We go in June.
Oh, no, you went someplace else though, right?
Oh, we went to the NRA. Yes, sorry. I kind of forgot. Yeah, we went to the NRA show, the annual meeting, and that was great.
That looked so much fun.
It was
You guys
a huge-
were having a blast. Good,
Yep.
perfect.
Okay, I guess we will go right back to you, Representative Sprunger, for the any PR updates.
All right, thanks so much, Deb. We actually had really good pickup on our press release, so I wanted to let the group know that that's something to be pleased about. We saw statewide coverage of our press release with both NBC and ABC Fox, so we need CBS to get their group together and get us on the air. That's one still to be worked out. Fortunately, this is an evergreen piece of news in terms of it's still completely relevant. The survey's out there. So we'll see if we can push CBS Montana. And basically the way this works, if you're wondering, is or aren't familiar, but when we put a press release out for a lot of these, a lot of these stations are syndicated. So if the news coverage it manages to actually make the airwaves and it's relevant across the state, they'll push it across the state as they have availability. So we saw coverage in all the major news markets on two different TV affiliates, which is great, or two different TV networks. We also got some pickup in local print with the Belgrade News and Livingston Enterprise, so we should probably thank the local news folks. I think I'm going to talk to Joey about rolling that press release out and helping us make some pitch calls to some, especially honestly, some of the small newspapers are good. We find a lot of people that are locally and really engaged and involved read their local weekly newspaper pretty carefully. So that's good stuff. We also saw coverage in the Daily Montanan, interestingly. So I would say a pretty good push for the group. In addition, I think we all know, or maybe we don't, but just as a rehash, FWP sent that out through their list serve. I believe I'll let them speak for how many that is, but my recall is from around 6,000 to 7,000 names, maybe, or emails. That might not be correct. And then we also have the Department of Commerce partnered with us on this as well and kicked it out through their listserv. So that is a huge swath. Obviously, we're taking advantage of our what are called our owned media channels, basically things that we as an entity own. We have some pretty big listservs. So I'm fairly pleased with the distribution of this release. And is Andy here today, Deb?
No, he could not make it.
Okay, so I need to get some update from him, but he did stand up the social media channels. So it's just a matter of us starting to get some content in. I think it might make sense, Deb, I don't know if you can reach out to him, but to get some sort of a repository of some sort. You've got a bunch of folks going out today that are going to shoot. Make sure we get photos of that. I would say get some quick little video clips of some things that we can do, especially since you're shooting long range guns. That should be of some interest to people. And when you're shooting that video, and Carrie, maybe, I know that you're fairly savvy with social media. I would encourage you guys, somebody capture video both horizontal and vertical. A lot of the stuff that's on social media, if we're going to use that tool, is vertical video. Basically, reels are shot as if you're looking at your phone and reading it. So this is that way. So let's get a little bit of coverage both ways. And I would say today is a great opportunity to pick up some different pictures.
Perfect.
And
Thanks,
some
Courtney.
video. Yep. Thanks, guys.
And I'll add, on FWP's part, we posted on, our main Facebook page. And then we pushed it out to the regions so they could post on their regional Facebook pages. I don't remember how many hits we got, but we got a lot of views, and I'll go over the numbers when I go over the individual survey update. But we're gonna push it out again on next week. We're gonna put it on Facebook again and on all the regional pages. And like I mentioned, we have we sent out the flyers there with a QR code to all of our licensed ambassadors. There's about 80 of them across the state. We have them all in our regional offices, and like Representative Springer said, we did send it out to our listserv, which the numbers in the thousands. I think Mako sent it out to their Mako is on our listserv, and I think they sent it out to their own listserv. And then a lot of the clubs, we asked the clubs to send it out to their members as well. So I think we are getting really good coverage, and I'll go off some of this. Talk about the survey update, but I think we're really sending it out, and we're covering the state as much as we possibly can. Sam, do you want to go over?
Yeah. Just wanted to give you guys an update on sort of our efforts, what that looked like, give you just a really brief summary of the information that we've gotten back so far on the club survey, and then kind of go over some next steps and where we're at with that. So we sent out the initial email with the club survey link on April 8th. We did a follow-up email on the 29th of April. And then Deb, myself, and Natalie actually followed up making phone calls with as many of the clubs as we could reach to ask them to participate in that survey. So far, about 44% of the clubs have taken the survey. Some of the high points that we've gotten, so I'll go over a couple of the questions that I thought might be relatable to what you guys are looking at. So question one, in your opinion, what single investment would most improve shooting facilities in Montana for the long-term benefit of the public? A basic summary of that, what we got is infrastructure expanding or adding shooting facilities and basic capacity, and then increasing or easing access to funding or grants available to the public. Question 12, you guys asked, which additional shooting disciplines would you most like to see added or expanded? A lot of folks are interested in, short range shooting or pistol bays. There's a lot of interest in sporting clays, and then youth or beginner focused areas at these ranges as well. Additional amenities that people would like to see talked about covered firing lines or buildings or development over these shooting firing lines. Potential water systems or electricity upgrades as well were a big high point. We asked the clubs the top 3 maintenance or development projects that they would like to see at their ranges. Safety berms and backstops was a big one. Range and facility infrastructure, so clubhouses or hunter education buildings. And then access improvements, so power, water, roads, and storage was a big issue at a lot of our existing ranges as well. I did pull a summary from question 22, which was, is there anything else you would like to add? So some of the high points there were safety infrastructure. There's a lot of concern at our existing ranges with adding pistol bays, and the proper safety berms being in those. Access and usability. So there's a lot of issues with roads and parking areas, and ADA accessibility at these existing ranges. And then the third is, again, adding or upgrading structures, and improving access for beginner or youth hunters. So on our next steps, I guess I would look to the task force as far as when we want to close the club survey, or if there's a date you guys have in mind.
Are you guys gonna do any more phone calls to try to?
We can surely do that. Like I said, we've put a pretty big effort into reaching out to these clubs.
And if it would add anything more to what you've already added, I'm not sure if it would or not.
We can certainly make that effort.
We can keep it open for a while longer. It's not gonna hurt us to keep it open a while longer.
Yeah, and then once we decide to close it, we can pull a final report off that, get charts and graphs based on our Survey Monkey results, that we can share that raw data with the task force.
I have a question. What would a beginner or youth facilities look like? Because we're talking about facilities, not training necessarily, right? With this, if that's what they're talking about with the infrastructure. What would that look like compared to what we've got out there now? Or more, I'm not quite sure what
What does that mean?
Yeah, well, what would be different, or, I mean, access to it might be the training part of that, but that's not necessarily what we're answering right now. What would the
Are they
facility-
being a classroom?
A classroom, yeah,
Is that what they're meaning?
We can get any specific answers to what exactly that looks like from the survey data.
I would think that, you know, when our kids and did everything through hunter safety and all that, and went out to our local place where we did, just as Big Sandy, but you know, you think of people going out to these shooting ranges and people that go out or that are serious or doing it, you know, they're taking up a bay or a range or whatever. And then you've got your kids that you're showing them even how to hold the gun, or, you know, you're taking up an area where, and you're shooting probably here to Sam in some cases, just getting understanding of what it feels like to shoot. So it seems to me that that could be covered in the sense of what we're talking about, big things, even just the shorter range or pistol bays. Those are the same places youth could be. And it seems like you could tie it all in together. I mean, I don't, when you think about a separate building for education and all that stuff, that might be reaching a little bit for what we're really, in my opinion, what we're really looking for. But just, it probably can tie right into some of these other things that have been asked for. I think it's just, when you're there with your kids and stuff, you kind of want to be in your own little spot or area, and you're not really doing a bunch of big stuff when you're certainly learning and doing all that. It's very close up, even understanding how to even hold a gun.
New shooter friendly.
Right. So it seems to be able to tie is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, yeah.
So you could tie it all in, I guess, and not make something separate. Is my opinion.
yeah, I mean, I would consider myself, even though I've shot a lot, even though I've even shot with these gentlemen before, I would consider myself a novice because I've just my own self-confidence, which I think is good to bring that in there. And then there was, you know, like these guys, they're amazing. My husband was a sniper in the military, so I'm surrounded by greatness. But I always ask for help every time I shoot, just because of my own lack of confidence. And you'll see that today as well. So you may laugh and take, you know, videos of yourself laughing at me. That's fine.
So,
But-
enhancing air rifle facilities be a good introduction for a lot of these kids.
Potentially. So I want to find out what the CMP grant entails, because the civilian marksmanship program that's based out of, well, especially the facility they built in Anniston, they are internationally while they're international shooting or youth shooting focused on the indoor ranges. So both Camp Perry in Ohio and Anniston in Alabama have at least 40 electronic target positions to shoot air gun inside. So they're internationally certified ranges. It sounds like the partnership that CMP is doing with the Cody range is that that's going to be a CMP facility or headquarters. So they'll sell CMP products and stuff. So it'll actually have an office there. And I don't know if part of that is they're going to be doing air gun ranges making it a Western States.
Cause
I know, well, in your neck of the woods, Jason Herndon has that facility. I don't know if you've been to it down in Missoula, that he does some air gun.
a couple of our high school kids I know have done really well. In fact, our nationally recognized shooters with air rifles been something, and when I was teaching to help aid this guy, I mean, we had a lot of kids who were doing air rifle work, and I think, no, it's a safer first step for these kids.
Yeah.
And gets them off on the right foot.
I
So
think
that could
that's,
be it, yeah.
I think that's definitely something to consider if that would work. The nice thing about air gun is you can shoot air gun pretty much in any facility anywhere. You can shoot it downtown, you can shoot it, you know, even 22s. Like I used to go shoot in Germany, and we shot in downtown Wiesbaden in the basement of a school. They had a whole range set up, so you're downtown shooting pistols, you know, center or rimfire pistols. So I think from the range perspective, you could co-locate those, but the nice thing about air guns is it can be a standalone facility that you can really put it. Unless you're trying to do multiple use, and then you can sort of use it for different things. But
But if that were to be something that were a focus, even if we focused on it statewide with different ranges or different a thought process too, or you know, a fun video series for the first time shooter or for children or something, you know, gun that you had that located. I'm just thinking what that would look like, or if other facilities have really focused on that too. Seth, you may be able to bring us to some of those resources, what that would look like, since it seems to be something that you came across more than once, that this is what this would look like for the first time shooting. But that would be great for what we're trying to do for you know, these sportsmen and women out there who want to shoot guns.
yeah, I think you know, and that was one of the highest responses was youth or beginner focused areas. And I would think that would just be a simplified sort of separate area where you bring people aside, and maybe you've got a pavilion by itself or something, but you're not throwing them into the main range where you've got people shooting, you know,
Right.
Magnum rifles on each side of you and you're trying to shoot 22.
Well, intimidating.
So yeah, I think that's the way that I would read that.
And it could be even something like too, I think with signage you can do, I think at those places where just like youth area where like a parent could know that taking his kid to that spot of the range is a kind of a place where others are too. They're, you know, that you could probably do a lot of things with that at a range. So I did have a question, Madam Chair, on the funding for some of these, and because Sam, FWP funding for shooting ranges, did we already talk about a bunch of that? I'm trying to understand that a little bit. Let's give that one cost.
I was there.
Part of the plan.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
But Sam actually, he runs it, these
I was
guys
just-
know our grant program.
Okay. Sorry, I don't want to have to rehash and if everybody kind of
Are
knows
you-
how that goes. I was just kind of curious how these other, because we had just had a discussion. I was curious about how the funding, because it sounds like certain clubs get the money or apply every, and then other clubs don't. I probably was asleep or missed that part of the discussion, but I just was curious.
Then you want to go?
Yeah, I can just do a real quick overview. So we have our shooting range development program, PR focus, right? And then we have our community shooting range grant program, which is completely separate. There's roughly $400,000 per year available for different shooting ranges to apply for money. That's a 50-50 match program.
50-50 match, that's what I was, okay, yep.
So it is, yeah, a lot of these clubs have to have quite a bit of cash up front to apply for that grant program. And because of that, we do see a lot of repeat customers. But this last session, we were able to divvy out all 400,000 to different ranges around the state.
Do you know how many people, were there any applicants that did not receive funding?
That were not refunded all of the applicants.
But you did say that the applicants that apply every year are a lot of times because smaller clubs don't have the match and they don't even apply. Is that-
Yeah,
or
we
is
do
that-
have repeat customers,
Yeah.
certainly, that come back year after year, or they'll skip the year, but they'll come back.
Thanks for.
Is the match be in kind?
The match can be work provided, or cash. And they just can't buy tangible things like bullets.
Yeah.
Clay pigeons, they can't purchase things like that. It has to be something that's physically admirable.
Well, sorry to make you rehash.
No, you're. Yes.
And that is not PR related, yeah, which is, didn't I hear because PR's got some strings attached, so it was better to just have it as a standalone.
So the money for that comes from state license dollars for the community shooting range grant program, which allows a little bit more of an open group of folks to come and apply for that money, where PR is mainly tied to FWP having some kind of ownership in that property.
Okay.
Whether it's lease, easement, or outright acquisition.
Okay.
Any other questions or thoughts on the club survey?
And I just want to say thank you to y'all. I know that we're kind of a very loose knit type of a group, which I really like and appreciate. So I hope as we think of questions, my point is don't hesitate to keep asking. We're doing a great job.
And I will add to the survey, I think we called every single non-response group on the list. So I don't know if calling them again would, be appropriate. Yeah. Because we either left messages.
So you said 44 or 44%?
44%.
44%. That's still
pretty
that's a lot.
It's actually really good.
That's a lot.
It's really good. And I don't know, I actually did the survey over the phone with several of the people that, we called. So, to make sure that we have the information.
Thank you.
But we did find that, I know I did in my group, that a lot of the emails were incorrect. Even the phone numbers were incorrect, and the people I was talking to, they're like, I don't even know that email. I have no idea who that would be.
So that was good for you guys to update your
Yeah.
database too.
Yeah. Yes, so it was good. But yeah, everybody was pretty excited, and I think the most common question I got was, does this mean we're gonna get more money? I'm like, well, it can affect that, that this group is looking at this, task force is looking at it. So, but yeah, I think everybody that we talked to were pretty excited about it. I'm not sure that they really understood, even though we sent out a great explanation on what we were asking. I don't know that they really understood what the survey was about. And so it was good to talk to those folks.
Question. So as I look just briefly through that and thinking about what we're here doing and looking at areas, it seems like you look at that map that's in there, it's like we've got a lot of great places that were probably put in place in those locations, just thinking out loud about it, that met the need of people coming and going. They could get to it, they could drive to it easily, they know where it is. It was around an area where people weren't complaining about where the shooting range was initially, like looking at those. But when I look at these things like infrastructure, capacity expansion, short ranges, sporting clays, all of the dollars required to do a lot of berms, safety features, things like that. It seems like that's a pretty big aspect of what as we pull this together, like how do we even get the clubs that we have already established into a place where they're in a position to be doing what they're doing. I guess it seems to be something, parking, all that stuff seems huge financial needs for that. And so I'm curious about how things will kind of, like when we're looking at, well, here's some places where new facilities could be and what those cost. We've got existing facilities that seem to have a huge financial needs. Anyway,
I think that's a big part of what we're trying to get at. I know we've had very strong opinions on both sides. Well, at least one side of that. I don't know that there's any strong opinions towards we need to build a giant facility.
Right.
I think that's something that we're looking into because I think that this is an opportunity to do something like that, which it would be very difficult to do without a concerted effort with support. To go come up with $10 million or $15 million is not something most people are going to undertake unless there's some support behind it. And I think that's where I see this as something we should look into. Even though to that point, there are, hundreds of shooting facilities, clubs, backyards, wherever, where we could increase shooting. I think it's gonna be a return on investment for, yes, I think investing in those is good. And yes, it probably will help facilitate more shooting, but is that going to bring more people in? Is it going to, is a new parking lot or bathrooms or new berms? What does that do for the shooting sports? I think is really the question that I think the task force is trying to get at. And so the more, when I look at it, it's like, all right, well, let's figure out what that looks like. That's why the South Dakota has been great. I really want to get more information from both Wyoming and Colorado on how they did their facilities, because the South Dakota facility is, it fills a specific need, which is interesting, but I think what Montana is looking at would probably more closely align with what Colorado's doing. Just how they've structured it is a little bit different. And then there is a lot of grant money potentially out there for, CMP coming up with a $10 million match. I mean, that's pretty significant.
And maybe that's what we could put on our to-do list with probably Seth, myself. Is looking at where the potential grant monies could come from, either with tourism, training, CMP, what that would look like. How do we get some economies of scale going here? That would be helpful for what we're looking at, especially with, and Christy, you may be able to help us in this area as well. Just because you may have access, through the Attorney General's office, or he could help guide us that these are some areas we could be looking at as well. I'm assuming a little bit here, but that might be a question that you could ask if you're willing to do that.
Are you talking grant money for it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because I know that there's training grant monies out there. I know South Dakota has a combination training, but I've also sent a few of my colleagues, and Deb, I'll send this to you as well, just an example of a facility in New York that was built with grant money that is a training facility. And even if the Sheriff Slaughter told me that he had mandatory training today, but if he is not able to stop by today, maybe we get him on the schedule for next time as well to come talk to us about what his vision was. I did carry the bill for that, but it was pretty amazing. And then when you start thinking of the local, state, and federal organizations that would definitely benefit from that, that also would help fund the facility, but also give it credence, like I was saying, and easily be one of those. We could do both kind of things as well. So maybe that's what we put on our to-do list for next time, is taking a look at some of these grants. And I don't know if the governor's office or wherever you guys can help us out, maybe the whole group starts looking at that, what that could look like as far as going forward.
It might be something to look through like NSSF and ask people like that more so than like government.
Well, yeah, no, the grants wouldn't come from the government necessarily.
No.
You're right, NSSF, but I don't know if I answered your question, did I?
Yeah, I was mostly just thinking, I don't know if my husband's office would have any knowledge, but I think maybe more like the shooting groups, they might have more knowledge of grants instead of through government agencies would know. So.
Okay.
So is that correct? Question related here, because I want to step into something else. Not with both feet though. So, but anyway, and I can't remember all the questions on the club survey verbatim, but Sam, in reading through the responses, did you encounter much ambivalence about or concern about moving in the direction of one large facility and its potential impact on local clubs and what they do and their financial capacity to continue? if we went in that direction.
Senator, I didn't see anything specific to not wanting one singular shooting sports complex. A lot of the local ranges are concerned about deferred maintenance at their ranges. And then just with talking with a lot of the ranges around the state of Montana, increased costs of operations is hard for them based on club membership fees and things like that.
So, I'll be frank. I'm from my meetings with the two clubs in Missoula. I'm getting some pushback. People concerned and saying, and Senator Ford, you've shot at the Deep Creek facility, you told me before. Many times. There is some concern that they will lose the ability to conduct their own shooting contests, shooting functions, and they will lose money and not be able to continue because that money will flow to a singular large facility. And so, that's one thing that I wish we'd ask on the survey a little more clearly. Nothing, your survey was great, Seth.
You can't
It
cover
was
it all.
awesome. But I just,
So one thing I would say to that, and I understand that there's this, and I was probably in that camp prior to our last meeting with the idea that if, there's 5 shooting ranges within 50 miles of here, and we go and we build, well, even Great Falls has a pretty significant shooting complex from the town. If you go build a giant complex, it's going to suck all the people away from those clubs. They're no longer going to host competitions. The Ventress guys, it's going to go to the nicer new range, and no one's ever going to want to shoot there again. But from what we heard from South Dakota, that's not, it's actually the inverse of that every club surrounding them actually grew because you're bringing people into the sport and then they go back to their home ranges and expand it. So I think it's probably just, it's a perception. And I get with the surveys that people might be concerned about that, but that's not, and I'll be curious to see what we hear from, Colorado, if they haven't tracked any of that. But from what we heard, it's actually the inverse of what you would think. So I understand that. I think the other concern is that the funding is essentially going to dry up and it's all going to get diverted into this one facility. I would say that statutorily, $400,000 isn't going anywhere. You're limited to a matching amount. I don't know, you guys don't cap that. There's a capped amount.
There's a capped amount. I apologize. Can't
Okay.
recall what it is right
I don't
now.
remember if that got changed, 50 or I don't remember what the number is, but it's not like all that money is going to get sucked into this shooting facility. That will still be available.
because I know, especially at the Deep Creek facility, they do have a pretty robust silhouette shooting program. And they really like it. It's popular to folks from outside. I know I didn't ask the question, but the assumption was that South Dakota doesn't do something like that. And I don't know if we did the same thing, same type of thing here in the state, if those type of specialized shoots would be incorporated, or
I
be
think it's
left
just a
to the
facility.
local groups to do their own thing, so to speak. So anyway.
Do
I
they
just-
have major matches there? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it can be, it's very popular. I know I've heard a number of legislators down through my time have said, yeah, I've been to that facility and shot, and the real impediment to getting to that is the condition of the road. They're having some of it's fallen into the river, and so.
And that may be where they work with their city and
Well,
county.
they can still get their fifth wheelers through, or their,
Wow.
any type of trailer facility. But Missoula County recognizes the problem, and we're trying to address it. The county road department, because it is a county road to get that facility. So,
I don't think anybody wants to replace something as awesome as that. I mean, in fact, it would be like you were saying, is to enhance.
That's one thing that we need to make sure that folks understand is that we're not doing something to replace you.
Well, I think at this point, we're not doing anything yet.
I
I think that's an important point, is that we're just gathering information, and the more information we can gather, the more informed we can be about what a complex looks like, costs, operates like. That is going to help us to make the decision of does it even make sense or not. And then as we're getting the club surveys, and I think that's going to be helpful, and then one of the individual surveys of what people are looking for, and then I think we're going to have to balance all that out at some point and come up with a
I've never been
recommendation.
there. Now you made me want to go.
It's got a lot of different things.
Well, and that's something else we could do too. I know the flathead could be an option. And it might be a better option because more of y'all are from up in that area, and not as many of us, but Billings, we've got indoor ranges, we've got 17 mile, isn't that the one? Yeah, which is just basically the berms. That one's always full. We've got the Rod and Gun Club. Wood Creek. Yeah, where if we wanted to just go and take a look at the facilities that we've got there. And I'm not saying that we should ever put a facility in Billings. In fact, I kind of think it might not be the right place to put the facility. Not because we don't have the hotels, but because Cody is so close and of all of what we've got there. But these are ideas that I'm floating out there, or we could, set a meeting where that's what we're doing, is just going to a bunch of different places over a course of maybe 2 days and having fun shooting guns and seeing what they've got there.
The Berkeley Pit.
The Berkeley Pit. We go to View. Take your vitamins. So then Seth, maybe you can help guide that. You've been to the
Yeah,
right places.
I think it's useful. I think getting club feedback, I think right now we're just trying to it'd be helpful to get an overview to see if we're missing something. I think is kind of the big thing of, does something pop out that we didn't think about? Is there some area that we're not considering or not weighting correctly? I think that's really what's useful to see is everything kind of what we think it is in terms of use and what people are looking for and what they need and what they want? Or is there something that we need to consider? Whether that's, because at some point even if it's a grant program, we don't do a facility and this money's just getting poured into clubs, we need to figure out a recommendation for how we're doing that, what we're prioritizing. Because at the end of the day, I think from a Pittman Robertson perspective, it's how do we get the best return on investment for those dollars to increase the shooting sports? I think that's really what the recommendation should come down to, and the most efficient way possible. So,
And I have to say, I think you're right, Seth. Both surveys were designed to find what we don't know, what you don't know. And, I think you're right in that you guys probably had your finger on the pulse, you probably had some idea of, maybe 90% of it, but you really wanted to, verify that and then find out what you're missing. And this is the data gathering part of what you're doing. And it's the most important part, I think, because like I said, you guys have to make recommendations based on what you thought you knew, but now what you actually know.
yeah, and some of the stuff that I'm interested in seeing once we get these finalized is if there's sort of regional differences for needs. If an area like Billings where you've got multiple, shotgun sporting clays, all the, a big shotgun area. Are they all asking for more shotgun, or areas that don't have it asking for it, or people just want more of what they got and they would want something else if they knew that, silhouette shooting, no one really is doing that, but if they started doing it, then everyone would want to do it. I think that's some of what I'm looking for to see what the surveys come out with, if it's based on just what's available, so what people know. And if that's the case, then do larger facilities marketing essentially all of those shooting things, bring attention to it, which then drives demand. So I think it's just good to get a lot of information.
It's been my observation that the people, the shotgunning sports are the ones that spend the most money.
They spend a lot.
They spend a lot.
And why is that?
I don't know why.
They miss a lot.
Maybe
The game,
it's because they can't hear.
shotgun is the prestigious.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and there will be any facility, I think, should attract that constituency because they are big spenders. That's putting it bluntly, but and there's so many different shotgun sports nowadays that, basically, I found that there's a dearth of variety of shotgun sports. And I'm not a shotgun. Something to be considered in a complex.
I'm not good at any of it. I just enjoy it. Yeah.
I would suggest that we take about a 10-minute break. Sure. Right now, let's come back at 10:20. And we'll resume talking about the surveys.
Perfect.
And are you gonna go down to Whitaker for one board meeting, that plan?
Deb,
Yes.
tell me what time we're thinking about being done. Was it 12:30 or was it?
We're gonna be done by noon today.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're actually in the middle of a project down there at that range, it's an FWP range. And so, yeah, they're very involved in getting the survey put out. Dave Headage and Jim. Dave is sort of my point of contact there. And Jill hasn't worked out well. But yeah, they'll meet you out there at the range anytime. So,
I just want to.
yeah.
Where is it?
Hamilton.
Yeah, it's like it's just-
And I developed to the governor office, it's like this might become more of an effort. Just from a, having been on those here. Why are we charging like circular charging taxes when we could like access something? You took land that was essentially 2 acres of ag land that you got $26 a year for that entire parcel. Somebody came in, dumped a bunch of money in inventory, for local economy, maintenance, guys, the lawn yards.
Like crashing.
And then FWP, they turn around and then they charge you 1,000 times what they were making for it because, well, that's what he assessed the value. It's like, so you're penalized. It's like building a business where that patch of land created nothing and now it's creating money. And now the state's like, well, now we're gonna charge you a bunch of money because you're worth something. That's not the point, especially if it's the government.
Right, and I think that's.
Let's do 100-yard per year leases for, if you want to do this, give you the land, what's the land for, you make, double the egg cost, and give them a 100-year lease for it.
Right.
And then build whatever you want, but that's where I think it's a major gain.
Yeah, and I think.
Not like,
You do this, like, we are.
No, well, I know.
And there's a contribution, I guess.
Sergeant.
Oh, yeah.
So her boss. So her boss. My fast,
Still try.
because the sergeant. Business cards there.
What's your primary?
So. That's a different.
So you would-
That's where she's out.
No, my gun is big time.
It's the.
We have,
we have.
They were like-
Right? There's businesses that maybe they are college kids.
I'm just saying, like, I just.
He's like,
And if
that's
you
what I'm
want
saying.
to-
What I've been doing.
South, I guess it's on.
I said, yeah. So-
Well, but then you go back and flip it,
Bring
like,
it
who's paying
very-
Pittman Robertson?
Because she's like-
Firearm manufacturers, every gun that I send out the door, I pay 12% tax. Well, and that's. And then the air, it's like, so if you're a person, it's like, what are you contributing to Pittman Robertson? Nothing, nearly comparatively.
I know.
So that's, if you're gonna break it out, primarily the share of this that gets paid in should go back to support those things. All right, something. Well, so you know, you can't have it both ways.
I thought you were using it as South Dakota. What's your future familiarity with the importance? That's how they got that.
Right.
Wow,
long list.
Yeah. I would say, and just, the thing I've noticed right here, I imagine, talking guns. I see things come and go.
They actually. Right now.
Yeah.
That's a half section. This is actually here. The next section. So whether it's so section here or that is that. And it's coming all together. I don't want to stay around.
Yeah, there's some other shooting.
He had the mentality range. What was that? What was that?
I mean, it's always.
So,
You know,
yeah,
it's like, so you're paying, like you're collecting $300 right up front, just because it's only be a high use. Like, that land isn't yours unless it is. It's kind of like, well, a railroad's going up here, so this is what the land for the railroad is. And I mean, but the land.
Yeah. No,
You know, I'm just moving it around and who's getting screwed. So all the tax.
Something about.
I would just, I'm with you.
If you have one.
We're members of
That's right.
But I'm like.
No, it's interesting. There really is a little bit of. For industry.
Well. So I don't mind paying.
If you want to.
Yeah, there's a lot of. Yeah, we're just essentially, I would like to see people at least solely for some, you know.
I just work. When I go, I don't want to see so.
It doesn't.
It's like we made. Well, it's just like, I mean, I'm listening to dollars being. That's why it's so.
But it was something.
Let's do that. I think that's.
Crazy.
I think that's where.
I think it's just a lot of
What is the?
lax of
Yes.
and trash and regulation. So
That would be the other thing. I mean, we are there sometimes. Yeah.
There's a lot of calculations that aren't just. And maybe that's a little part of the issue is gonna be, it's like a tax, or a tax. If you pick someone to get the deal, if shooting ranges to get the NRC
Oh, that's what it is.
for cheaper. Well, then I would.
Basically, not change, but,
They were just the one that.
Kind of right in the doorway.
I was just curious to me.
I think they were like 500 a year, and I actually get comments.
No, I really haven't.
People was like, "Gosh, I didn't want to take something about your Logan, go, he's in the middle city." I don't know if you're asking.
Yeah.
So
We'll see.
Maybe you're
Chart, yeah, really kind of.
And that's, you know, a lot of it's been here, there's much of that, you know, maybe not Colorado. I wonder, I don't know, you know, Colorado.
We do have to, we have to reach a lot of different there.
Like, the tricky part is with, you know, with the.
You're absolutely right.
That's the big
Like, so if you go both the billing drop down, you probably get it's like 600 acres. And you look at it, you're like, Like that big, but then they got a big chunk of it was policies. And use, you know, if you look at their footprint of like trails and range, it's probably, yeah. I mean, but that's a big facility. It's a big facility. I guess there's ways.
How do we look out for very other
There. Let's be honest, there's no grass growing.
That's.
Watch the sheep, right? Let's.
I know up here, and it's fine. It's like, okay, yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, we'll see if we can do some statement here. Yeah. I'm not surprised. Yeah, I think that'll be included in the first one, and definitely corporations. Yeah.
I'll get out there. We can take a look at it.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Appreciate
thanks.
I'm not surprised you get there.
If it serves a compelling public interest, and that's where this is gonna get interesting, because you're gonna have people that maybe you're not shooting. At some point, that are gonna say, well, I don't want my tax
I
dollars.
guess regarding a, you're not kind of a central.
Which is nice. to get this pick on this one. These are all the things that are coming from shooters.
I think a little more.
I think the trickier part is gonna be how do you make the case to shooters that, hey, what we're doing here actually benefits you.
Well,
You have a Montana mentality. I mean, that is that aspect. There's a lot of DIY, there's a lot of that.
No.
Oh, yeah.
But I can tell you to go back a few times, like the opportunity to teach your kids. The more we do this, I go more to this is really
Well,
fun.
that's where they.
Why I think that's having these and having tools, because the more people can get it, the more they are in a place where they can learn young, they can, even if they're novice, like house. It's not into. This is just not there. Everyone on the ranch. I don't know. I can't not have something.
This is
Thousands of people.
It is, it's the only time to be afraid of.
Your wife and I are probably very similar.
Yeah, she has a really, she's getting better at it, just like every time.
My experience, close to that would be like there's a lot of South Phoenix or.
I did, that's what I'm doing. But I think when we, I think that. One second, I have a huge.
I got it.
Is that thermostat beeping? Is that what was that?
Yes.
I turned it up. to
Yeah.
11.
Don't go away.
We're not having wind damage.
Paper, you know, it's just a.
Did you guys watch Minnesota yesterday?
They reviewed a huge film.
I'm sad.
Actually.
The shooting range development manager for FWC, so.
Yeah, Nathan Lance.
Okay.
Drop your name.
Yeah.
I contacted him a while ago. Got the idea, once I heard about this, so he kind of dropped your name, yeah. Yeah, and that's funny, I actually had a list of things that I was gonna take a picture of, and it's sitting on my desk here. I'll remember his name, right here.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yes, absolutely.
So
They haven't followed the
I
procedure.
got this message from one of
It's
the
gonna die anyway,
state representatives.
but this is what.
Okay, I'll just tell her how difficult.
I'll ask everybody to speak up too. It's just.
Mentality.
Ted Beardsley, I just thought I'd introduce myself. I had some
Yeah.
email back.
Email back
Yeah.
and forth. I'm glad you can get
Yeah.
it here.
We'll run that to every county if they want to have more.
Well, it's,
You know,
and
it's
through
kind of,
the planning.
here's one's kind of where some of the original
What good is
discussions
it?
and trying to figure out again, kind of like I initially mentioned, like.
Also,
look
how
at
many people are you
they're
serving?
doing something that
It's
would be
like-
beneficial to my long-term answer as well.
I
And,
think they're used to that.
yeah, I try not to help out, but having to do it.
While I've been playing with it, I gotta go to bed. Right?
Sure, well, I appreciate it, yeah.
Right, you put out there and put it, yeah.
We're gonna get started again. I just want to remind everybody to try and speak up for, this is not the best setup, we understand, for viewing and hearing us, and I apologize, we just couldn't get the regular system working. So for all you guys out there, I really appreciate your patience and letting us know that the sound quality isn't the best.
So if we could just try to speak up, and be aware of the folks online trying to hear. So thank you, Senator, for letting me know that somebody else was having a hard time hearing us. Before I jump into the individual surveys, just wanted to make sure that we're done with the facility and club survey. Any other comments or questions on that? Okay. I guess I have a question for you guys on that. You know, I sent out the preliminary information that we got from it, but it was just the basic data. We didn't do any crosswalks or anything. And I guess my question to you all is, what would you like us to compare, you know, across the club survey data? Is there anything that you want us to dig in and look at for you? We were talking about regional stuff, but I think that was more the individual surveys, but anything.
I thought it was great what Sam did just this far. Is the maybe for me is just with all, I don't need to see, I just like, what are the key takeaways from it? What are the top 5 or whatever key things from that I can actually digest?
Okay.
You know, that's just me personally. Like, I think I just need to know what the general sense is of what are we hearing, and take all those comments, everything, and say, okay, there were 500 people of the 1,200 or 13, whatever, that felt this was their number one thing. I just like you did in the other graph. I think just what are the key points? That's my point, or that's my.
Is there anything regionally that you would want to see?
Well, I think a big one would be any crossover. You know, for instance, if it's a multiple choice, or you could, you know, pick whatever applies. How many of those are the same people picking? So just overlap charts of, you know, these are massive, but it's the same, you know, people that are picking them, or is it different groups of people that are picking them? So I think like the eat and out. So this is the overlay between these groups. You know, these people are a standalone, which is a big segment, or, you know, these are the same 3. So it looks a lot more than it is the kind of the background that you wouldn't see just from reading.
Okay.
And also, I think, because you just mentioned too, Deb, I think something like we were just talking, someone in Plentywood might feel a little differently than someone in Boylston. So that might be, I don't know what you think about that, but just knowing regionally where those are coming from, or
or if there's an outlier, maybe.
Yeah, maybe,
like, hey, this spikes, but these people don't care about it.
Right.
I know you can go really deep with data, but just, you know, kind of trying to, you know, suss out, this is an important data point. This is significant.
Well, Montana's tough. I mean, you're gonna have Laurel feeling different than Billings, feeling different than Roundup. I mean, but we still have a lot of facilities within that 60-mile radius right there. And then you get up to Miles City and Forsyth. Yeah.
Wouldn't mention that
Okay, so I don't know if you had time to look at the individual shooter surveys, but we did get over 1,200 responses so far, which is huge for any survey that we send out. I mentioned we put it on our Facebook pages, our regional Facebook pages, sent it out to our licensed ambassadors, have it in all of our regional offices. Sent it out to about 7,000 people on our listserv. And then hopefully those people on our listservs have also sent it out to their individual groups. I know, like I mentioned, a lot of the clubs I talked to said they also sent out the information to their members. So over 1,200 responses thus far. Hopefully we'll boost that up even more once we send it out again on Facebook on Monday. I'm not sure if we'll be able to send it out to our listserv again. I don't know what ComEd is going to do with that, but you know, they don't want to, you know, overload people either. So they have the way that they do things, and I don't want to interfere with that. It was an anonymous survey, of course, but we asked people if you want information on the task force to please give us your email. We of those 1,200 people, about 500 people said they want information, so that was really, really good. We're boosting that, our database up for that. We asked lots of different questions, and I'm only gonna hit on a few of them. You can look at the others yourself, but most of the shooters shot weekly. I don't have the numbers on that, we could get numbers later, but out of the question that we asked, how often do you shoot? Most shot weekly. Most of them traveled less than 25 miles to shoot. We got information from all but 12 counties. So, you know, it was pretty sparse, but all but 12 counties, we have some response from.
Wow.
So that was really impressive. We'll talk about next steps later, but I was really surprised to see that and really happy to see that. The number one thing, over 50% responded that the number one thing that they would like to see improved is year-round access to a shooting facility. Meaning maintaining the roads or covered shooting areas. And another thing, people said, I think it was about 60% said they would participate more if the shooting facilities near them were either new or improved. So that was an important takeaway from there. And then one of the biggest ones one other thing I want to share. The number one item that they would like to see in terms of type of shooting is more long range rifle. That came out. And I know that you've heard from some folks that long range rifle wasn't that important, but most of the people said
The second most was mid-range rifle.
Yep.
So.
Yep. So that was really stood out to me. And then something that I was surprised about, but it supports the direction that you guys might be going. Over 80%, about 82% of the people said they would like to see a large shooting complex in the state of Montana.
I'm gonna pick up right where you left off, but in the meantime, I want to set the question. Are you seeing people buying mid-range, long-range?
I think there's a definite growth. There's a massive growth in that area. I think the field shooting, the type of shooting that we're gonna see today, I think is one of the fastest growing sports in America. And in all that it encompasses, the field style, you know, long range style shooting, I think is a, and it's not a huge, you know, from a numbers perspective of how many shooters do it. I mean, shotgun probably outnumbers long range shooters 100-1, but most of the rifles you'll see out there are $5,000 plus. And the people that are traveling at the match, I mean, I don't know people, well, the ROs will be there, but there'll be people from Pennsylvania, Florida, like that travel to shoot. So I just think it's a growing thing. And it's also something that's hard to shoot. Like, I think part of the reason for ranges is that it's hard to go in your backyard and shoot 1,000 yards. You can go shoot your 22 in the back 40 or your air gun. You know, pistols are pretty easy, go to Forest Service. You can do that. You can't do that for, you know, long range rifle.
What is the distance for considered long range?
I guess it depends on who you ask. I would consider 500 to 600 yards. You know, I think our question with mid range was to like 500 or 600 yards. Anything up beyond 600 starts to be long range. A lot of people that shoot rifle will say like 800 yards. Beyond 800 is long range. Everything other than that's kind of like mid range. So, yeah,
Okay.
Most hunters, like growing up, 300 yards was long range. Like if it's over 300, that's a long range. So.
Well, they're thinking about carrying it back
Yeah,
too.
300 plus, I would say most general shooters would consider more than 300.
All right, thank you. Go ahead. Yeah.
So about 82% said they would like to see a large shooting sports complex in Montana. Now, of course, like I said, we did get all but 12 counties respond. Some more than others. You would expect, our big 7 areas are the most response we got. Bozeman area was the number 1 place I'd like to see it cited. But of course that could be skewed because we got more responses from Bozeman. We didn't go dive deep into that at all, so that's something that we have to look at too. Kalispell, Senator, was the least favored area for a shooting sports complex. Again, that could be based on the number of responses that we got. The next steps is, I think we're going to look at where we're missing responses. And we're going to try to maybe reach out to those county commissioners and target some of those counties that we're missing. Yeah.
Just a question.
sure.
Sorry, back to the survey. I'm just curious. So when we look at all the counties where there was a decent response, Cascades and these others, what I guess I'm just, and this is maybe not for here. I'm interested to know, like, what are then the shooting facilities around those areas that were most highly responded to? Is there any correlation to that?
We didn't dive into that data at all. I don't know if Sam could answer that just anecdotally, but we didn't look at that.
I don't even know if it's important, and we don't have to talk about it. It just popped in my head. I was just curious if that would be any indication of, where better off it, or if it's just where they respond from. So it's okay. I just was curious.
And so my next question was also for you all is what data do you want us to dive into in this? What do you want us to look at closer? What do you want us to compare crosswalk? And maybe you need to think about that a little bit, and we have time, but there's a lot we can do with this data. And this, what you got is just very raw. We did not include any of the open-ended answers in what we sent you because we got such a high response. We need to do some work there. We're going to have to use AI and do word clouds or something to analyze that data. But this report I gave you would have been 300 pages long. Those open-ended answers.
Well, I think generally the stuff that would be interesting, and so the demographic, it would be useful to have it broken down by kind of a percentage of respondent, or, for instance, if I know that Gallatin County was, whatever, I don't know if there's a scale on percentage, 20, a quarter of the people that responded are from Gallatin County. But then if you look at where do you want a shooting range cited, that number is less. Or if it's Kalispell, they were 12%, but then what is the percentage of people that live there that actually wanted it? So if you sorted that out and say, well, of course you want it within, I'll drive 50 to 100 miles. I live in Bozeman, therefore I want it in Bozeman. But how many of those people, if you were to kind of take that component out, then what people are saying, no, I live in Bozeman, but I'd like it in Kalispell, or I live in Kalispell, Bozeman, to try and figure out, is it just because it's convenient, or is there a trend towards, no, people from everywhere would be interested in having it here, they just don't want to drive there. Some of that information would be helpful. And then I think the other big one, going back to what do you want? So if it's a check all that apply, if you look at Pistol Bays was the 4th highest, but if you said Pistol Bay people as a group were 1, but then the rifle people picked all 3. It's like, so it looks like rifles in high demand, but it's the same, 600 people that pick all 3 of those, and you have 600 people with pistol, so they're actually comparable, or maybe weighted toward pistol. I think that would be helpful to know, where the overlap maps at. These people pick just this. If you sorted it by, or removed multiple choices for something that was a similar discipline, does that weight the system differently? Because that's the information that you can't really see. You just get you could see for plans, okay, this is popular, or large percentage of people ask for this, but
Mhm.
what's that number actually look like?
Exactly, yeah, we do have to do some comparisons across types and then also geography.
Well, the greatest thing about a complex is lots of it.
And,
Well, yeah.
and Seth, you did mention, so over 80% of the people said they would like a large complex. And they did say they would drive 50 to 100 miles
Right.
to go, so.
And then there's the other, and that's a significant data point, I think, for us, but then there's the other aspect of South Dakota said their draw area is 6 hours.
Mhm.
So if we start looking at 6 hours, there's gonna be a lot of other considerations that come into that, like where are our population centers? In a 6 hour circle of where we would put that. It's like, well, the largest population is not gonna be North Dakota. We can't really hit Denver. So that means it's going western Montana, which is you're pulling from Salt Lake, Boise, maybe that's kind of right on the edge of that 6 hours. If you put it, Dillon or Butte, or you go western Montana and you try and hit Coeur d'Alene, Spokane, etc. So there's going to be sort of a lot of considerations that if we start looking at a complex and making that as if we recommend it, this is what it looks like. There's going to be a lot of information feeding into that. This is one component of that.
Well, and Rapid City is really in the middle of nowhere. It's probably a good 20, it's on a gravel road unless they've paved it since then, but I mean, it's not that far from Rapid, but it takes a while to get there. It's actually Sturgis, I think. Or Sturgis and its address. And but it's so close to the hotels of Rapid or Sturgis or Spearfish, Belfouche, all of those areas right there in the Black Hills, and it's so close to the Black Hills too, which.
Yeah, I also think that the individual shooter survey, it informs the complex, but it also is informing, I think at the end of the day, we're going to have two funding streams because I don't think it's an either or. I mean, I think a lot of people are thinking about it. It's either going to go to the complex or it's going to go to the ranges. I think generally, if you build a complex, it's going to require a lot of money, but there's also funds that will likely be available for additional grants to specific ranges or for specific purposes. Whether that looks like the legislature looking at leases, long-term easements. If that can be done fairly cheaply, then it opens up a lot of possibility for adding ranges to support a lot of what people are asking for in your area. So I think there's a lot of different information coming in this.
We've mentioned in the past partly in a study of economic impact, the economic impact of such a complex as a destination shooting event, hosting and some economic impact, and that would be helpful.
Doesn't Montana State or University of Montana, don't they, I know they do timber, right? That EBB, you probably know it.
I'm sorry.
The Economic Bureau.
What's this economic research?
Right, at University of Montana.
The School of Business.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I know they do a bunch in logging and timber, but
Yeah.
would this ever fit with them?
Well, I think it might. Now, the comment is usually the folks that they survey usually put some money in to do the survey. But I do know the former director, and I could ask them the question. I mean, if they would be, because as you know, they literally cover the entire state.
I know, yeah.
And so, I mean, that's well worth asking.
Yeah, I think it was brought up that there's a chamber group in South Dakota that I think was Rapid City that does economic development, that they were tracking or starting to track a lot of that. So they had made a use case for, hey, we want to build a range here. It sounds like they've done quite a bit of work on figuring out what the impact is. They would probably be a great resource. I don't remember where we landed on that last meeting. If someone was going to dig into that or not, but there was a group. And then also Grand Junction they probably have something similar. I'm sure that there's a chamber or a business, development, economic development group that's tracking, hey, we built this, here's what we saw as a change, because that one's been running for a little bit longer. I think they could probably give us some, at least general numbers. I don't know if that would be, talking to Commerce or talking to somebody in the governor's side on the state that tracks that tourism board. Maybe they would have some of that information.
Deb, can you track that
That's-
down, or would you like me to?
Yeah, I have it down for myself to look into that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do that.
And, they do run a school or it's not school as such, but they do a lot of tourism research out of U of M too also. So yeah, I'll change
That's
it.
a shooter doing this as term paper.
But- There we go. That would actually, but that might be where Department of Commerce, maybe if we talk to Mandy too, they may have some direction we could go.
And maybe she was the one that said she was gonna work on that. I don't remember.
I'm sorry, I had interrupted you. Did you have?
No, okay.
Any
Hey,
other-
A question, does anybody know, what the ability to shoot on public and state ground is in Colorado and South Dakota and some of these other areas?
I do not know that answer.
On state lands, I don't know. I think,
I
I
don't
would guess that
offhand.
South Dakota is very
Um,
similar to us.
Yeah, I do know there are, in other states, actually do treat their trust lands differently with respect to unrestricted kind of public access that we have for rec purposes here. That they aren't necessarily the same in some of the other western states, or just pure rec access to state trust lands. Like obviously, I would assume the BLM Forest Service, the federal land managers, probably pretty similar, but that's a fair question. In here, that because we are, for the most part, pretty open for recreational access on trust property.
That's a good question, though.
So like I said, this is just the raw data. We're gonna try to find the gaps and where we're missing, some of that information. But anything else that you'd like us to dive into here? Because that's pretty much gonna be our next steps in terms of getting you guys the information that you need from the survey. And, like I said, you might want to think on it for a little bit too and get back to us, but this is really the bulk of the information that you're gonna be facing some decisions on.
Well, it kind of ties, if you don't mind, it ties in. I was just looking a little bit online. It said the main reasons mentioned publicly that the South Dakota shooting complex was put in Rapid City. Its role as a tourism and regional hub, the desire to expand sports tourism into colder months, the need for more indoor gym and tournament space, and the fact that the land was donated for the project. I just thought that was interesting when we talk about tourism.
Well, I think you're right though, because I was a little surprised that they would put a giant facility in Cody. Because if you think of it, it's colder, it's high mountain. There's no major population centers other than Billings, really. I mean, when it snows, like you're basically cut off from everything to the west.
Right.
And yet they still put that there, and reading through their criteria, they put it super high as like tourism and, public good. It's like, well, wouldn't it make sense to put it in Cheyenne and you get the entire Denver area 3 hours away? So there's got to be something to the tourism angle based on at least their criteria.
No, I just thought.
Well, it made sense already, how many bear maulings have there been? So there's tourism that's happening right now, and it's the same thing with South Dakota.
Maybe we do need the shooting complex there.
Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Can you remind me, Cody, did they pay for the land? Was it on state land? Was that part of the factor? Somebody gave them a good deal? I don't remember the situation there.
Jeff, do you remember?
The entity that's actually operating it is what they call in Wyoming the Joint Powers entity. In Montana, we would call it an interlocal. It's a Park County, City of Cody entity. And so I think they did land acquisition for it. kind of in the same way the state, because the state of South Dakota, I don't think that was state property before they went to build it on that site. I think that was the same in Wyoming, that it's a public entity operating it, but I don't think they started it with public land that was probably owned by either Park County or City of Cody. I think they ended up finding private property. And I don't know what the underlying structure of Cameo was either.
I think that was on government land. I don't remember. What
Yeah.
The one, okay.
Thank you.
Lease. They're saying it was Wyoming State School Trust and it's a lease.
Well, so they're leasing school
It's
trucks.
long-term 2000, yeah, it's a long-term lease.
Lease with the state though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm kind of thinking that down that pathway, regardless of whether it's a shooting range or if it's a complex, it seems like a easy win potentially for shooting ranges is figuring out a fee structure, a long-term fee structure that's not crazy expensive for a lot of these facilities, where you can use land, maybe not perpetuity, but for, you know, the foreseeable future at a decent rate. So you're not, you know, if you're the range up in North Valley and you're paying, you know, $60,000 or even $15,000 a year, I think is what they were paying currently. Like if that number is climbing and you're ending up 500 members paying $30,000 a year, that's a significant cost and impediment to shooting an endpoint. You think about spending that money on roads and infrastructure and maintenance, like that money goes a long ways for a club. So maybe facilitating state leases of some sort long term and making it financially feasible, probably a good way to increase shooting across the state, regardless of whether it's a 2,000 acre facility or if it's, you know, 60 acres down the road.
So I bet DNRC has that information of who's leasing that land from them and then what the current lease is and then what they're expecting them to go up to. You think they would share that?
They don't know if they have what it takes. Certainly.
Well, what they're asking.
Did they mention that they had received kind of a new, because it was supposed to like quadruple or, and then I thought I saw an email that came back and said, well, it's gonna be like a 40% increase, which isn't great, but it's better than 300%.
It was a significant increase. I mean,
Massive.
You've got our heads around how many are cited on trust land, or if we don't, we can get.
Yeah, I can pull that for sure pretty quickly.
And probably even get the data points for the ones that, because I'm guessing what happened in North Valley is, and which is what's happening with us too, is that as these leases are coming to the end of their terms, DNRC is looking at adjusting their revenue streams over concerns over having not kept up with what they view to be their trust obligations on their revenue side. So that's maybe some that are sitting on leases that won't come up for a while, but when they do, this is likely to be the same issue.
Part of the issue is, of course, the acceleration of market values of real estate in the state of Montana, and which also ultimately means that many of these DNRC lands, if something isn't done in the next legislature, many of these small clubs will go away.
So then,
or have to look and find other facilities.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're right. I mean, the rapid increase in the value of real estate and especially DNRC property. But DNRC, you know, they've leased out long-term leases on other pieces in the Flathead Valley that are bringing in a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
You know, like I think Costco or somebody sitting on DNRC land.
That office space up Glacier High School, all that sits on trust land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but there is in the Constitution a phrase that says that the land board it is tasked with getting market value for state lands, state school trust lands. But there is a phrase in the Constitution, and don't quote me on what it says, but it's along the lines, paraphrasing, that unless a socially valuable function for the community is included, okay, which we're working on right now, for instance, to get a fire station in west of Whitefish. DNR's the best place to put it would be on DNRC land, but it can't be afforded in that way. But if it serves a useful community purpose, and I know that in Lincoln County, there was a case before the land board. And Christy, you might be able to tell me, it was supposed to come up last month, but it did not. Dealing with the possibility of a shooting range in Lincoln County on DNRC land that would fall under this category. The land board had to make a decision. Okay, and so whoever knows anybody on the land board.
I actually missed listening to the land board meeting last week or last month, so I am not knowledgeable in that. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I know that it didn't come up. It was supposedly it was supposed to be up, but it didn't come on the agenda. So it might be next one. But anyway, that is an avenue that might be pursued legislatively.
It'll be interesting.
For those of you legislators.
As you say, you legislators. How am I gonna survive without you, Senator?
You just have to suck it up, Buttercup.
Figure it out.
You know, we're talking about South Dakota and Wyoming and Colorado, and again, we couldn't get Colorado here this time. He can, I think, he said in June he was available, but we got to talk about that too. But we still plan on getting the information from Colorado to you guys soon. So I just wanted to say that. Is there anything else on the survey or?
You got a good start.
It is a good start. I think maybe we'll go to the public feedback since we're close to 11. We'll go to the public feedback session and then we'll talk a little bit more about next steps and future meetings. I know everybody wants to get to a solution. That's where we always tend to go, but you know, the data gathering, like I said, is really important here for you guys. And we're gonna need to do some crunching on this, and there's a lot to do, especially with the individual shooter side. So, and we'll talk about that after the public feedback sessions. So I guess I'll go to Natalie first before we go to the room, if there's somebody in the room that would like to speak. But Natalie, can you run this public feedback session for us?
Yeah. If anyone would like to speak, please raise your hand and then I'll let you talk. So far, no one is raising their hand.
Okay, we'll go back to that maybe, and I'll just see if anybody in the room would like to offer anything. Have anything to say.
I guess,
And please state your name for everybody and who you represent.
my name is Ted Beardsley. I own the My Arms Ammunition in Manhattan. It's a gun shop. So I guess my question about a central shooting facility for the state, and please, I own a gun shop. I want nothing more than more shooting areas and getting youth involved and all that good stuff. But I guess what kind of comes to mind is, from 91 to 2011, the state leased the old Parker Homestead from my parents, which was for those 20 years, the smallest state park in Montana. So,
Where, can you tell me where that is?
just north of Lewis Park, down on 287.
Oh, okay.
So when that lease expired, the state had kind of reevaluated their responsibilities towards state parks and decided to focus more on state importance rather than more local type significant historical sites, and suggested contacting Headwaters Heritage Society and all that for more of that kind of upkeep. And I guess I'm using that as somewhat as an example of a state facility that you're going to have, say it goes to Great Falls. That's awesome for Great Falls. You're probably not going to get many people in buildings. When you get, major shooting events, the restaurants and hotels and everything in Great Falls is going to benefit from that. But I think it's a safe bet to say that tax dollars are going to be coming from all people in the state. So I guess I don't necessarily have a solution or anything to add in opposition to that, but I think it's something that needs to be considered.
Natalie, is there anybody else online that would like to speak?
No one is raising their hand right now. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. And they're still not raising their hands. So I think that's all for public comment.
Okay, thank you so much, Natalie. If anybody does, is it okay that we allow them? So if you could just keep your eye on that, Natalie, we'll allow them to speak if for some reason they decide to, or if they're just figuring out the technology.
Yep, I'll let you know.
Thank you. So I just wanted to talk about, like I said, everybody, human nature is naturally jumping to solutions rather than focusing on the issue at hand. And I know that's where we're going to get with you guys, hopefully by the end of October. We're not there yet. We have just a few more months, and I realize that this is a compressed timeline. But I don't want you to worry about if this seems like we're moving slow. I would say don't worry about it. We're going to do a lot of work right toward the end, and I realize that, but this information is really important to get. So my first question to you all, is there anything else that we can help you obtain? Any other information that we can help you obtain other than, like I said, diving into the survey, getting Colorado's information? Is there anything else that you think would help you all start forming and developing those recommendations that we can get for you? What are you missing?
Economic impact.
Okay, yep, I have that down. Economic impact.
And I say I'll follow up with BBER.
Did you say you? Is that at UM?
Yeah,
Okay.
Bureau of Business Economic Research.
Did they just, Senator Curry, did they just change, how long is the new person, is that?
Just about a year.
Year ago, okay, I thought I read
March,
something
he
they,
retired.
okay, that's okay.
And do you think you'd be able to do that next week? Okay.
Yeah, I'll chase somebody down.
I think one thing that would be helpful on the facility side is to get the metric that Wyoming used for grading. Because I know we got the score sheet of essentially how people scored, but it doesn't have the methodology, or at least I don't think we had the methodology behind it. This is what we fed into it to get those numbers. I think it might be insightful to see kind of what they were looking at, because they came up with a system for grading those by feeding information into it. So if we could get either that system that they use. I don't know if they used an agency or some professional service to come up with that, or if they created their own, but it would be helpful to get more visibility into that.
And I just told Seth that when I speak with the legislators, I'll include them on the phone calls.
So if I need, I've got the Rapid City Chamber of Commerce down for, because if they're gonna ask me, you know, about what's happening in other communities. So is Cody Chamber of Commerce, or is it, who's?
Great quote. There may be like a regional economic development thing there that covers, you know, Sheridan, Cody, Buffalo. I mean, for that particular part of the state, it could just be Park County alone. But I'm not for sure who their tourism side is and how much work they put into that.
And the Colorado facility, I know where it is, but
Grand Junction's the closest.
is it the Grand Junction?
Yeah. Yep.
Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Probably where I'd start. They probably have other people that could do too. Yes.
You wanted to, that would be great.
And I think they kind of, my guess is in Colorado, they kind of got a bit of a east side, west side thing going too. And I'm guessing it's kind of an economic development focus on the west slope as its own thing, because that's, I mean, even Walt, the guy will hear from Walt, you know, when I even talked to him on the phone, said, you know, this would probably look different if it was on the Front Range, you know, from the economic standpoint. It's on the west slope, so it's not next to Denver. It's, you know, kind of got to get it.
I
Want to get there.
I've done a lot of work in Grand Junction.
Yeah.
All right, I was trying to find out.
Long, it's about to be the shooting capital. You know, and Cody does have other, you know, they have the Wild Bill Museum there, which has, I think, the largest, or one of the largest, not the largest firearms collection in the world.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I wouldn't walk through. It takes you a day just to get through everything.
That part of it.
So it does have other attractions that I
Mhm.
think probably play. It'd be cool to see what they fed into those models for information to get their answer.
Museum. Right, take it from
Yeah,
It's huge.
and of course, east entrance to Parliament and Hearts.
Yeah. Well, if you have any other epiphanies in the middle of the night, jot it down. Email
Don't
me.
call you in the middle of the day.
My phone is on do not disturb, so you can. Yeah, so this is gonna be a work in progress. You know, we have a lot of work ahead of us on this data, you know. And because of that, I wonder about your June 1st meeting. It's only 2 weeks away. We're not going to be able to crunch all this data in 2 weeks. And so I'm wondering about the benefit of this next meeting. Do you want to have it? And if so, what would the goals be? Or would you like to just meet on the July 7th meeting? July 7th is Zoom, but if we have the data that I think we're going to have, it could be quite a robust meeting and I don't know if you want to do that on Zoom.
I would be in favor of canceling the one in 2 weeks. I have to be gone. Or I mean, I'll be missing that meeting nonetheless. And I do think in person is always more, I don't know, it feels better, if nothing else, especially when you're talking about data and numbers and if there's technology issues. But that's just my opinion.
And we said July 8th.
I think it was the 7th.
Would it be possible to change the June meeting to a Zoom only, even if it's for the purpose of getting information from Colorado?
We could do that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because I would like to get that information sooner, and then if we can
Okay,
get
that's a good idea.
any information from Wyoming as well, I think that will help us percolate some more information, and then probably with some other questions, direction.
I like that too.
And we can decide then if we want July to be in person or would like that to be on the 6th.
And we'll have a better idea of how much time this is gonna take us. And by us, I mean two other people that are in this room. Who will be really crunching the data for us. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think if Walt can make it to the June 1st meeting, I know he said the first week in June is good for him, so we'll try to get it. If it doesn't work for him that date, I'll have to reach out to all you guys and see it, knowing that it'll be a Zoom meeting, knowing it'll be shorter. Maybe we could just put it close to the date, yeah. So I'll reach out to him and see what works for him and get back to you on that. And I think, again, it is gonna be part of the data gathering. I don't know that we'll have a whole lot more to report on at that meeting. But maybe it'll just be an interactive meeting, just like you had with, South Dakota.
And I'll take a stab at it. I have been able to connect. I talked to him earlier last fall with Arizona DFG guys for the facility what's the name of the NRA facility there?
Ben Avery.
What's that?
Ben Avery.
Ben Avery, yeah, because they had, when I at least talked to them, were willing to maybe offer some insight too on how that has worked for them, relative, again, much like you heard from John, that structure being a a state fishing gaming agency operating facility, just like Cameo in South Dakota. It's distinct from how Wyoming's gonna play out.
And do you have John Canda's phone number?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I sent it to the listener, but I can send it to you again.
Oh, okay, because I got a hold of the actual head of the Fish Wildlife Parks. Gosh gave me that number. But yeah, okay.
We've got John's.
Yeah. I can send it out again.
So I haven't heard back from him yet, but yeah, I'll give that to him.
Okay, so I'll work on that June 1st meeting. The July 7th meeting, I think what we'll try to do, or if it winds up being July 7th, what FWP will try to do is to synthesize and kind of get this data the way you guys can consume it better. And not, these graphs are great, but it's not really what I think you need in order to make some decisions. The open-ended questions, again, we're gonna have to use some sort of AI tool and come up with some themes there, the common themes there, and get that out to you. Is 2 weeks lead time enough time for you to go through everything?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I had one quick thought on like you were talking about the graphs. If we could also get like how many people voted for each thing, just as a number. So, percentages are good, but like if there's 5 people that voted for one thing instead of, 95 or something, that would be better for our knowledge, I think. Sorry to.
No, that's okay. No, that's good. I was just jotting that down. I think that's a good point too.
Also, there is someone raising their hand and my computer is glitching out. So it does this thing where it makes Zoom full screen randomly without me doing anything. So I'm going to try to get that taken care of. But would you rather do public comment now or wait?
Yep, we can do it.
Okay. I have Weston. You should be allowed to unmute and talk.
Hello, my name is Wes Odikoven. I'm a 4-H instructor out of Flathead County for shooting sports. Just a couple comments. Been listening in, and you guys had asked kind of what youth shooting would look like and stuff. And one thing I would emphasize, you guys kind of brought up air guns and so forth. So up here in Flathead County, I would say we're struggling to find facilities to host and facilitate some of our shooting sports. We use the Flathead County Fairgrounds, and the location there is kind of under construction. And so we had to, just move our facilities to a different building within the fairgrounds. And it's just kind of still in the works of going forward of what we're gonna do. Otherwise, I mean, that's just kind of just my thoughts as far as you guys going forward and stuff, just keeping in mind, local clubs and stuff that are trying to make things work.
Weston, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So do you do mostly air guns then? Is that what for your youth program or what kind of-
It's pretty broad. Flathead County is pretty big, and we have, I would say, 200 plus kids that are in shooting sports for 4-H each year.
Oh, that's great.
I'm an instructor for air rifle, air pistol, shotgun. I did do the instructor in school for muzzleloader as well. And they also have archery up here, which I'm not an instructor for, but my kids are a part of as well. And so
Are your archery and the weapons, are they at the same facility or do they have different facilities for that?
currently we're using the same facility. It's just our expo building is what we use this year. Usually we're underneath the grandstands, but the grandstands are not, we were not able to be in them. They're hoping that we may be able to get back in them this year. But it's, still up in the air as far as my knowledge of whether we'll be back in those, just due to the safety of the building.
Okay.
But yeah, just in general wise, I would say, and this is probably across the state, just as far as facilities to host, counties events across the state, I would imagine we're not the only county that's fighting that battle.
I've got another question for you, Wes, and thank you so much. This is Carrie Crow. What would you imagine that the number of kids in 4-H in shooting sports are across the state?
Well, I know when we go to Bozeman, usually for the state competition, this year I felt like the numbers were down, but I would guess to get your best answer would probably be to reach out to the state coordinator. Scott Francis, I think is his name. But I would imagine, I know we have 200 plus just in Flathead County, which I would imagine we're pretty large in those respects as far as counties across the state, but I would guess that there's, well over 1,000 kids that participate in it each year.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And
Yep,
did you have any more comment? I kind of.
No, that's kind of another, so I'm also instructor for small bore, which is 22 rimfire guns. And I use a different facility, private facility up here to have taught that in the past. And it's just our limitations there as far as safety and stuff, as far as we're limited on room of how many kids are able to be involved in that as well and stuff. So
Just keep 4-H as well, or is that separate?
No, that's 4-H as well.
Okay.
No, thank you for you guys' time.
Any more questions for Weston? Well, and thank you so much, Weston, for listening and participating and being active as we go through this process. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Hey, Terry,
Go ahead.
I do have a question for Wes.
Yep.
Oh,
yeah, Wes, just practical knowledge as we are going out, and thanks for the insight. I'm also up here from the Kalispell area. This is Representative Courtney Springer. I'm curious, how did you hear about the shooting sports meetings? How did you get information so that we can continue to dial in our process with getting engagement?
I think I first first heard about it through the Facebook stuff that you guys were putting out there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Question for the dates.
I should have known that we should send a survey out to the 4-H clubs.
Oh, that's,
And that was something I missed.
Teachers.
It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah,
or
we blew that one.
even,
It's not too late.
yeah,
Not
or
too late.
even not necessarily the survey, but really us finding out how many youth shooters there are and what.
But I think, you know, if we can send a survey out to, you know, get a hold of leadership and how many different clubs have a shooting program.
So does FFA do shooting too?
So
Yeah, but yeah.
4-H is the biggest. The state extension service would have total number enrolled, et cetera, pretty easily. So 4-H, I think 4-H shooting sports is probably the largest feeder for competitive shooting sports in the US.
And Seth, what questions do you think we would ask them if we were talking?
Well, I think the 4-H thing is always just, it's air gun, small bore archery, shotgun muzzleloader, but it's indoor. They need indoor spaces to shoot.
Okay.
And it's just, they shoot 10 meters for air gun, and then it's 50 feet for a small bore indoor. So you don't need a lot of room. Rim fire is a challenge because you have to deal with lead. You can venting and all that, but air gun, you can shoot it really wherever.
Oh, so if we can find out where people are located and not,
Yeah.
I
know that, like, for Missoula has that shooting facility, Billings, they shoot at, well, clubs kind of shoot wherever people, barns, you know, anywhere they can measure out. And then the fairgrounds are usually, I think they hold the state competition in Bozeman Fairgrounds every year, for as long as I've known. And, yeah, it sounds like they shoot the fairgrounds in Kalispell.
Natalie, is there anybody else wanting to provide comment?
No one new is raising their hands.
Thank you. Where I was when we went to public comment.
make it after you go on.
We were talking about the July 7th, meeting. Okay, 2 weeks time. Is that was plenty of time for you guys? Okay. We'll see if it works for the other staff, that will actually be doing this, but, I'm hopeful. And so that next meeting, what I'd like to do is probably do a more heavy facilitated meeting. I'll talk to the chairs about how they want this run, but I'm thinking this is when we're gonna get the flip charts out and start getting things down on paper based on what you guys have gleaned from the other states and from the surveys, from, you know, public comment and from your visiting other, facilities. So I'm thinking that's when we're really gonna start getting into the meat of it and getting your ideas down on paper. And it's gonna be probably a pretty big day and a good start. Does that work?
What would work better for folks? We've got July 6th or 7th. Well, right now, July 7th, which can work. I just have to be on an airplane at 6:30 in the next morning out of Billings. Would July 6th work for, okay? I mean, I can do it. I can do July 7th, but if we could just.
I think we'll be traveling back from the holiday weekend stuff, so.
Along the 6th?
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, yeah, we can.
I can do either as of now.
Okay. Well, and I can do either. I can do it.
Change your tickets and fly out of break or out of home.
Except then I have to fly back into hell. Either way. Yeah, I'm flying over to Washington DC.
Okay.
I'll be fine.
Anything else? Burning questions, comments, thoughts?
That was so.
Are you guys feeling good about this?
Moving in the right direction.
Now we gotta start.
And I'll check online with Representative Sprunger and Christie. Anything else from you guys before we close this meeting?
Not on my end, thanks. I got a lot of listening in, but I'll rehash with Representative Seekins Crow. There was some of it that was a little hard to hear.
All good here. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. I guess thank you to everybody online. We're going to stop the recording now, and these guys are gonna break for lunch before they head out and have some fun. So thank you so much for listening in.
And I got a pin, drop from you five as to where we're supposed to go now. Anybody else?
You guys could just give me 5 minutes to get the lunch stuff set up. That would be great.
Yeah, if you.
Lunch.
It's like,